Too high for their own good. The new roadside test that may help buzzed drivers stay off of the road. And they're off. The new mission for 2 destroyers from San Diego as they join their counterparts out in the Pacific.
You've just kind of just handled it and felt it all. And when you buy a pie in the store, you can tell that the crust was stamped. It has an exact, precise, uniform, jagged pattern on the edge.
No. Add some ice cream to that slice, and we'll find out how much energy goes into making an apple pie from scratch. This is Evening Edition on KPBS. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. I'm Maya Trabulsi. The stepfather and suspect in the murder of Jahi Turner will return to San Diego to face murder charges. 37-year-old Tyree Jones waived extradition in a North Carolina court today. 14 years ago, Jones reported his son missing from a Balboa Park area playground. Weeks of intensive searches followed of canyons, fields, and neighborhoods in the area, as well as a grueling sweep of the Miramar landfill. Deputy District Attorney Bill Mitchell says even though this is an old case, the evidence has been well preserved.
This case, though, luckily, most of the important witnesses' statements were audio recorded at the time that the investigation was taking place. We also have a number of the officers who took very detailed reports, and we'll be able to rely on those to assist with the prosecution of the case.
Authorities have not said what led to the belated arrest in the high-profile case. New Yorkers are casting ballots in the state's presidential primary today, including Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. Bernie Sanders is now the senator from Vermont, but he grew up in Brooklyn. These New York candidates are hoping to pick up some momentum in their home state and a big chunk of delegates. On the Democrat side, Sanders is looking for an upset after Hillary Clinton's campaign manager all but declared the race over. On the Republican side, Trump will need to sweep most of the 95 delegates to keep his hopes alive of clinching the GOP nomination before the party's convention in July. And like New York, California's primary will count this year. Usually California's primary is too late in the process to make a difference. Secretary of State Alex Padilla says this year California could determine the outcome.
Because of the competitiveness of both the Republican and the Democratic nominees, not just the country's attention, but the world's attention is going to be on California in June to determine who the nominees are that will be on the November ballot. That means those candidates are also going to be campaigning here, advertising here, spending money here. All the more reasons why the voters in California, I think, are going to be important but excited.
And California's primary is scheduled for June 7th. 4 years ago, the race for San Diego's District 1 City Council seat was closely watched. Ultimately, it decided the partisan balance of the council. Democrats managed to keep their 1-seat majority. Well, you could say deja vu in this case. District 1, which includes La Jolla, University City, and Carmel Valley, is again the focus of local politicos. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen takes a closer look at the candidates.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning to you. How are you?
Good to see you. Welcome to Team BB headquarters in University City.
Barbara Bree shows me around her small campaign office. A handful of volunteers is planning door-to-door district walks.
Of course, we have the all-important microwave and refrigerator. You must feed the team.
Bree calls herself a high-tech entrepreneur. She co-founded the flower delivery website, proflowers.com. She also co-founded an organization to support women in the life sciences and another nonpartisan group to support women in politics. Now she's running for City Council District 1, a race she says is about the future versus the past.
I'm the candidate of the future. The high-tech and biotech industries are the economic engines of our entire region. And this is where I've spent the last 30 years creating good jobs. And we need these worlds to continue.
Bree is a Democrat, though local elections are officially nonpartisan in California, and none of the District 1 candidates sounded particularly partisan in their interviews. But a look at their endorsements gives insight into where they all stand. Barbara Bree is endorsed by the San Diego County Democratic Party, labor unions, and environmental groups. Her main opponent is Ray Ellis. He's endorsed by the San Diego County Republican Party, the conservative Lincoln Club, and the Regional Chamber of Commerce.
And it's a great opportunity to talk with the mayor and myself about.
Ellis's campaign headquarters are in an office park in Sorrento Valley. He's a small business owner and volunteers for a number of local charities and nonprofits.
I'm a centrist. I'm an independent problem solver. And I want to work with others to make sure that we're not only dealing with the challenges we have, and we have some challenges, but more importantly, to take advantage of the opportunities that we have in San Diego. And I want to bring that experience to City Council.
Both Ellis and Bree list mostly the same priorities: fixing the city's infrastructure, improving police retention, cutting bureaucracy, and creating more affordable housing. I asked Bree if she wanted to say anything about her opponents. After a long, pensive pause, she said this.
I trust the voters to know the difference between when a candidate is telling the truth and when a candidate is misrepresenting the facts.
There's a story behind those words. Ray Ellis recently accused Barbara Bree of not supporting Proposition B, San Diego's landmark pension reform that voters passed in 2012. He also suggested she supports spending taxpayer dollars for a new Charger stadium. Neither of those things is true, and Ellis walked back some of those statements. I asked Ellis the same question, if he wants to say anything about his opponents. He said he's interested in talking about issues.
Again, this infrastructure issue is going to be with us a while. We need to make sure we're electing people like Ray Ellis who can deal with that issue from a fiscal standpoint. And we've also got to make sure that we're creating good jobs.
For a while, Bree and Ellis were the only candidates running in District 1. But in the 2 weeks before the filing deadline, 3 more entered the race. There's Louis Rodolico, a retired architect. His campaign's centerpiece is to finally build the Regents Road Bridge. That project has been planned for decades, but nearby residents oppose it. Then there's Bruce Leitner, the husband of termed-out incumbent Sherry Leitner. He's open about his dislike of Ray Ellis, who ran against his wife 4 years ago. Bruce Leitner is an engineer and inventor and says he'll continue his wife's leadership. And the 5th candidate is Kyle Highscala, one of Sherry Leitner's staff members. He's 23, but touts his experience. He's the only candidate who's worked at City Hall. He says his 6 years there give him the inside policy knowledge to lead on day one. With 5 candidates on the ballot, it's going to be tough for any one to get more than 50% of the vote and win the election outright on June 7th. That means Barbara Bree, Ray Ellis, or maybe one of the other 3 candidates could be looking toward a runoff in November. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
And video journalist Chris Arciaga helped produce that story. He's off the hook. 3rd District Supervisor Dave Roberts will not be facing criminal charges related to allegations of workplace improprieties. In a statement today, the district attorney's office said the purpose of the investigation is to determine whether a crime had been committed and that the violation of county and civil workplace policies are civil matters, which have been addressed by the county and the parties involved. Game on for the San Diego Chargers. The team will kick off their signature drive Saturday for a stadium ballot measure. The campaign starts in an East Village parking lot, the proposed site of their new home. The San Diego Tribune reports new renderings of the venue may be released to the public this week. The team needs at least 67,000 signatures to qualify a measure on the November ballot. San Diego City Council members had their first chance to weigh in on the mayor's proposed budget today. They mostly praised the $3.3 billion spending plan, but had a few gripes. It includes money for street repairs, increased library and rec center hours, and more police academies. But Councilman Todd Gloria says the budget should also give more funds to Balboa Park and an independence committee that reviews police misconduct.
Dedicated funding for the Citizens Review Board for outside legal counsel, specifically for contracted independent investigators and legal counsel, which I believe is an investment in public trust.
The council will hold a series of budget hearings in May and then vote on the mayor's revised budget in June. Thousands of Volkswagen owners are asking a judge to intervene on their behalf if the company doesn't agree to a fix in the emissions case this week. They own diesel cars that cheat on emissions tests, and they want to take their case to court if Volkswagen doesn't come up with a solution. The company says that they are making progress towards a fix and compensation and don't think a trial is appropriate. New data reveals most immigrant children entering the U.S. alone are being placed with adults who lack legal status. Only 4% of the 71,000 Central American children who arrived between February 2014 and September 2015 were sponsored by U.S. citizens. 80% of the sponsors live in the country illegally. Authorities say immigration status does not hinder the ability to sponsor, but sponsors who are in the country illegally must provide a backup plan to care for the children if they are deported. A new study is revealing why young people become homeless. Researchers from the University of Nebraska-Lincoln interviewed homeless minors in 11 cities across the country, including here in San Diego. They were asked questions about employment, education, victimization, and foster care. A little over half the participants said they first became homeless after being asked to leave home, while almost a quarter said their homelessness followed not being able to find a job. Almost 24% said they were physically abused. Almost 61% said they experienced at least one kind of victimization while homeless. Federal officials hope to use the collection of data to work with local agencies to improve street outreach and public services. Police can use breathalyzers to catch drunk drivers, but they don't have a great way of identifying stoned drivers. KPBS science reporter David Wagner says local scientists are hoping to change that.
California legislators have asked UC San Diego scientists to work towards developing a simple roadside test for measuring a driver's level of marijuana intoxication. Previous studies have shown that smoking pot can lead to impaired driving, but there still is no standard test for drivers suspected of being high. That's because blood THC levels don't work the same way blood alcohol levels do. UC San Diego's Tom Marcotte says the amount of THC in a driver's blood doesn't necessarily correlate with how impaired they are.
When a person smokes marijuana, their blood levels go up very rapidly and then begin declining fairly rapidly, but a person may still be high even though the blood levels are declining.
Marcotte and his colleagues plan to have research participants smoke marijuana of varying potency, and then the researchers will measure their blood, their saliva, and their breath as they enter a driving simulator a number of times over the course of 7 hours. The research grant for this project is still being finalized. When it is, the state of California will be providing $1.8 million in funding for the project. David Wagner, KPBS News.
All aboard, San Diego-based guided missile destroyers USS Spruance and USS Decatur departed today for deployment to the western Pacific Ocean. Military officials say the ships will join another ship in Washington to form a Pacific Surface Action Group. The group will conduct maritime security operations and provide missile defense. San Diego County has come under fire in the past for failing to enroll many of its eligible residents into CalFresh. The program is also known as food stamps. KPBS reporter Megan Burks looks at a program that's helping to close that gap.
You should be able to use your card by this afternoon.
Oh my God. Oh, okay.
Karen Miller and Benito Castillo are applying for CalFresh.
Any income right now? No.
The process typically takes 3 days, but they'll be able to swipe their EBT card for dinner. And they're sitting in a cozy library at the 3rd Avenue Charitable Organization downtown. The San Diego Hunger Coalition and Feeding America are working with the county to replicate this experience in other areas. They believe streamlining the process will help the county enroll those who are hard to reach, people like Castillo. He became homeless 8 years ago after breaking his back and struggling to pay medical bills.
In applying for it down at the office down there on 10th Avenue, it's just a big mess. Everybody's just all mad and angry, and a lot of people, and it seems like they just treat you like a number. But here, the service was top notch. Nice. Everybody was nice.
Yes.
It was actually nice to talk to a person.
The effort has improved things for county staff, too.
They don't seem to be excited about
thick plexiglass windows and a microphone that doesn't work. So that too, I mean, it's just made that whole process, I think everybody on all sides has felt like we're people.
Level's program enrolled about 150 San Diegans last year and is set to double that this year. The county says its overall CalFresh enrollment has tripled since 2009. Megan Burks, KPBS News.
San Diego County workers got a chance to reflect about Earth Day today. KPBS reporter Eric Anderson says the county hosted a mini Earth Fair at its office complex on Overland Avenue.
This is how much water it takes to water your lawn. And this is how much water it takes for a really low-use plant species.
Frank Santana was happy to share water-saving tips. The county land use planner gave out earth-friendly shopping bags. He distributed native flower seeds.
You use native plants that use less water than things like lawns.
And Santana shared advice on how to cash in on a rain barrel. He says the rules are different in different areas.
The city of San Diego has resources. Different water districts have resources. So we have information here that people can look up based on where they live, rebates for the rain barrels, and it could be a zero cost for you if you use all your rebate resources.
Santana was concerned about both water use and what actually gets into watersheds. He says a little bit of planning can conserve and save one of the region's most valuable resources. San Diego County Supervisor Greg Cox says the region will always have to be mindful about water.
While we may not have a shortage right now in San Diego County, it's an issue we're going to have to continue to deal with in the future. So whatever we can do to encourage people to conserve, to put in drought-resistant plants instead of their grasses and other things that use a lot of water is something we need to keep working on year in and year out.
This event is designed to help county employees learn a little bit more about Earth Day, but the county is also taking the lead with buildings like this LEED certified building that has solar panels on its patio, and here a green roof with skylights that let natural light into the building below. Eric Anderson, KPBS News.
And photographer Chris Maui helped produce that story. The warm trend bringing San Diego record high temperatures will begin to cool down in the next couple of days. Stephanie Olmo has the forecast in tonight's KPBS weather report.
The dry stretch continues across the Golden State here. As we wrap up the day today, notice satellite and radar the last 6 hours or so. Not a whole lot going on. Really no reports of any sort of precipitation. The precip is actually off to our east. Notice off to the Pacific. Some areas we'll see more in the way of cloud cover, but really not anticipating a whole lot. Temperatures actually have been well above average for this time of year. Now a little closer to home here in Southern California, around the area of Mount Laguna, mainly clear skies. Ramona as well. Borrego Springs, actually pretty quiet, tranquil weather conditions as we close out the day today in San Diego, much of the surrounding areas. As we check out the temperatures for tonight, Borrego Springs expected to tumble back into the middle 50s, 42-year overnight low here in Ramona under relatively clear skies. In Campo, 38-year overnight low. Alpine, 47 in San Diego will be tumbling right back down into the lower 60s. Area of high pressure will remain the trend here for the day tomorrow midweek on Wednesday. Although along the coast, it could deal with a bit of a cool down, especially around San Francisco, right back down into San Diego here in Southern California. Once again, the showers will be found further to our east. We're able to squeeze in another dry one, but things will start to change as we head into the latter half of the week, as we are keeping an eye of a storm system that is set to approach here Friday and into Saturday. That's going to produce a couple of showers here in Southern California. Now your 5-day outlook here for the coast. Thursday and into Friday, we're keeping those temperatures from the 70s, and then we'll go back down into the 60s. So able to enjoy plenty of sunshine here on Thursday. And like I mentioned before, we are keeping track of a storm system that is set to approach here Friday and into Saturday. So shower or two possible here in the coast. Temperatures will be tumbling right back down to the upper 60s, approaching 70 degrees for the first part of the weekend under partly sunny skies, and then more in the way of cloud cover as we head into the second half of the weekend. Your 5-day outlook here further inland here for the day on Thursday, mainly sunny skies, more in the way of cloud cover on Friday as that storm system starts to approach. Temperatures will be diving down into the lower 70s and then even cooler on Saturday with a mix of sun and clouds. Temperatures will be tumbling down into the upper 60s. Your 5-day outlook for the mountains. conditions. On Friday, a bit of a cool down. We go from the 70s and into the 50s, and we will remain in the 50s now as we approach the first part of the weekend before these temperatures begin to increase again on Sunday under mainly cloudy skies. Last but not least, our extended forecast for the deserts. For our Thursday, mainly sunny skies. Temperatures will be at about 34 degrees as we take into the day on Friday, 83, and then back into the 70s here on Saturday. Stephanie Omo, KPBS News.
San Diego ranks number 6 on a list of vegan-friendly cities. That list is compiled by People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals. It's the first time San Diego has appeared in PETA's top 10 ranking. PETA noted that if you're looking for a soy chorizo quesadilla packed with melty dairy-free cheese, then San Diego is the place for you. Portland, Oregon topped the annual rankings, followed by Los Angeles, New York, Detroit, and Nashville. How much energy goes into making an apple pie? Well, even making an apple pie from scratch, a lot of electricity goes into processing the actual ingredients. Inside Energy's Lee Patterson looks at the energy it takes to make an apple pie from scratch or buying a frozen pre-made pie.
Never worn an apron before. Because I have zero baking skills of my own, I asked for professional help.
So we're going to take our flour
from Kathy Guler, owner of Foodie's Culinary Academy.
We are going to learn to make mile-high apple pie.
But first, let's get one thing straight. The way Guler sees it.
And you can buy a frozen pie, and if you never made a pie, you might not even know that there is a dramatic difference between fresh ingredients and the labor, the love that goes into it.
I'm starting to feel like it's going to take a lot of my own energy to make this pie.
Okay.
Blending ingredients for the dough to make pie crust.
Okay, so here's our rolling pin.
Rolling, peeling, chopping, stirring. Me trying to force the warming dough into something resembling a pie crust.
You've just kind of just handled it and felt it all. And when you buy a pie in the store, you can tell that the crust was stamped. It has an exact, precise, uniform, jagged pattern on the edge.
No uniform patterns here.
A little off top, like giving it a haircut.
But labor-intensive pie crusts aside, Guler says she's surprised by how unfamiliar her students are, even with the basics of cooking, like measuring flour.
Takes a little practice, so we have to peel apples. I did a few more than you did. And that's just from practice. That just practice makes perfect. There's a desire to want to learn how to do things, but having the time available.
Making meals from scratch is hard and can be really time-consuming. Clearly, it's easier just to buy a frozen pie crust from the grocery store. In fact, studies show we're spending a lot less time in the kitchen. According to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, in 2014, we spent just 35 minutes in the kitchen on prep and cleanup. 35 minutes! And one of the ways we're cutting down time is by buying partially prepared foods, like bagged lettuce and marinated pork, that are processed by machines and then brought home from the store.
To save time, we're often using more of something else, and in some cases that might be energy. Maybe some of what we're doing in the name of convenience or our health has unintended implications about the energy needed to produce food that way.
That's because with this shift, we are essentially substituting fossil fuels for human labor. Those machines that process our food, they usually run on coal or natural gas-fired electricity, and we're relying on them more and more as we outsource food prep. According to one of the few studies on this issue by the U.S. Department of Agriculture, this move towards energy-intensive processing accounted for about half of the growth in food-related energy use between 1997 and 2002.
So sometimes you'll actually go through the food processing plants, and it's not robotic yet, but you'll see just as much machine time of the product being touched as individuals touching it. So there's all the energy there, of course. If you've never taken a tour of a major food processing plant, everybody should.
So I took her advice and visited the Western Sugar Cooperative Facility in northern Wyoming.
So right now we're almost to 120 tons per hour of beets. That's how much we're cutting.
Of beets, my tour guide says. Sugar beets, the white root vegetable used to make your table sugar. And turning these into this requires many different machines. From retro control panels to massive motors, boilers, slicers, pumps, and diffusers, making all sorts of industrial size and grunts. And then we arrive at a conveyor belt all loaded up with waffle fries. Whoa!
That's what they look like when they've been cut up.
Shannon Ellis says turning beets into sugar isn't simple.
Oh, it takes a little bit of doing. Yeah, it does. Every machine has electricity going to it. Natural gas and electricity are the two biggest hits that we have.
According to Ellis, energy accounts for over 50% of the factory's costs.
If you watch right here, this is actually the sugar was just made.
And is now being tossed around by a massive machine, a dryer, to remove any last bits of moisture.
And that's just freshly made sugar. It's really good stuff.
Fresh out of the dryer or the oven. Lucky for me, I get to take this pie home. But here's the thing. Energy inputs are everywhere in our food chain, from the machines that make our sugar to the freezer that will store my leftover pie. And when it comes to homemade food, whether it's made from scratch or from processed ingredients, there is another important factor in the already complicated energy equation, and that's food waste. Think about vegetables and dinner leftovers that end up in the trash. We waste about 35% of our food and the energy that goes into making it. For Inside Energy, I'm Lee Patterson. And don't worry, none of this pie will go to waste.
That looks good. Inside Energy is a reporting initiative funded by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. From all of us here at KPBS, thanks for watching and have a great evening. Good night.